Welcome back to the Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and there's a certain clarity that comes when you're moving under fire. When every moment, every decision, and every heartbeat counts. Brett Baker knows that clarity all too well. As an Army Ranger with 13 years of service and 9 combat deployments under his belt, Brett learned firsthand that chaos doesn't crumble you, it reveals you. But perhaps his most defining battles began not on the battlefield, but in the aftermath when the uniform came off. Uncertain mission began, figuring out what comes next. Transitioning out of the military, Brett faced the all too familiar storm of loss of identity, purpose, even the restless drive to accomplish something bigger than himself. It was in these moments of uncertainty that Brett discovered the power of intentional living, the gift of failure as feedback, and the renewed strength found in faith and family. As the co-founder and visionary of VA USA, a faith-driven remote virtual assistant company, Brett has made it his mission to build people first, especially military spouses, creating opportunities and genuine community, not as a byproduct, but as the very heartbeat of his business. From marriage retreats and chaplaincy to learning what real relationships look like under pressure, Brett's story isn't about leaving the mission behind, but about finding a renewed calling and helping others do the same. Today, we'll hear how Brett forged a new identity, embraced the seasons of purpose, and built a company that serves with the same intensity he once brought to combat. Brett, welcome to the show, buddy.
Adam, appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, dude. Really excited to do this one with you. So, first question, man, where'd you grow up and what inspired you to become an Army Ranger?
Yeah, so I grew up just north of Atlanta, Georgia, in a town called Roswell, and I really never thought about joining the military till right before I did, and I went to college basically for a few weeks and realized that was absolutely not the place that I wanted to be, and I was longing for an adventure, and there's no undiscovered continent, there was no Wild West, but we were at war, and what greater adventure is there than to go out and experience that? And so that's really what drove me there is I wanted to take a great adventure that was going to challenge me and I wanted to see what war was like.
So, how did you figure the Army Rangers would be a challenge? I know you had to look at other branches, particularly not being interested in going in the military, just knowing college wasn't for you. How did you end up landing there?
Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to be in special operations and I didn't want to join the Navy. I thought about being a SEAL, but I didn't want to get stuck in some boat for a year. And so the Army had a few options. And I actually originally was trying to get an SF baby contract. And they changed the rule right before I went to MEPS. I think you had to be like 21 or something. And so, I was kind of like, what am I going to do? And then they brought up this Ranger contract. And I didn't know a lot about the Rangers. But a quick little bit of research was like, all right, here's a special operations organization that I can join straight off the streets, and so that's what I did. I was in a hurry to get in. I was chomping at the bit, and it ended up being the best decision I ever made. I would not have changed that if I could go back and do it again.
For sure. Were you a beach bat guy?
I was. I spent my whole career at 175. Yes,
Dude, Hunter's so great.
it is.
My first duty station was Fort Stewart, so I spent tons of time in Savannah. I used to say I wanted to retire there, but I've heard it's just kind of gone downhill since then.
I mean, first of all, Savannah's an amazing place to
It's
be a
awesome.
young man.
It's really awesome, particularly like the party scene, right? Like just the open container laws are so just, all the way to a certain square. You just walk into
Yes.
one bar, walk out of another bar, as long as it's in a plastic cup, double fisted, like just so much fun. I partied probably more on the street than I did in bars.
Yeah. It was not it wasn't the highlight of my personal life during those times, but yeah, I mean, we were downtown partying like 5 nights a week, coming into work hungover or still drunk. And it's like, hey man, if you can keep up with the PT, then it's all right. And yeah, it was a crazy time, and we partied very hard, and I made plenty of poor decisions, hit some real dark points in my life during that. Drinking has always been a key component in poor decisions that I've made, but we had a great time. And through those poor decisions, I met my wife, and, we started a family. And once again, I wouldn't take any of it back. All the poor decisions led me to where I am today.
For sure. What year did you join, brother?
So I joined in 2006.
Okay, so right beginning of the surge. So 9 deployments. That's kind of a misleading number because Rangers do what, 3 month deployments, 4 month deployments?
Yeah, between 3 and 4 months deployments. So, for most of my career, it was 3 months deployed, 6 months home, then right back. So every year deploying. And honestly, I joined at the perfect time because special operations came so far during the GWAT. In the beginning of the war, um, all special operations didn't really have that much experience in what they were doing. The leaders didn't exactly know how to utilize them. And then we just evolved so quickly. So by the time I hit, especially Ranger Regiment, they had evolved and matured so much through the war. And then it was some pretty fun times
Yeah, I mean,
in
I
those
was just
first
a
few years.
conventional guy, and I got to see that too, just in how we trained and like because I joined in '03. So, and the only reason I say that's a misleading number is because you say 9 deployments, I say 4 deployments. Well, he's got more deployments for you, but I have 50 months of combat time. You
Mhm.
have 27 months of combat time. It's like, we just do longer, ridiculously long deployments.
Yeah.
16 months was my longest one, which was terrible. It was miserable.
Yeah, especially for the guys that were in early. Y'all did some real long ones.
Yeah, real long ones. I got a buddy, a really good friend of mine. I haven't talked to him in a while, but you might know him. Do you know Greg Foley?
Oh, that name's very familiar.
You would know him
Um,
because he got RFS for running his car into one of the statues in the square downtown.
yeah, that name sounds really familiar.
We call him
And,
Papa Foles.
and that doesn't surprise me, man. There's some crazy stuff that goes on, man. There really
Yeah,
is, especially in those barracks.
yeah. Oh man, I didn't. I was supposed to have a Ranger contract. My recruiter kind of fucked me on that. That's a long story. I've told it before. So all the kids from the platoon that I was in that ended up making it through RIP back then in '03, they would come to my barracks to hide because
Yeah, yep.
because they were playing. They would like call it private baseball, where they just like have you stand in the hallways of the barracks and throw fucking glass beer bottles and shit at you.
Yeah, so what we call the old barracks, man, it was wild in there, so a private's room was the team or squad room, and that's where people hung out all day in between training. And back then, I mean, life for a private was pretty miserable. And when work was off, like you said, people would be jumping out windows, they'd go hiding. Um, it was just one of those times where things changed while I was there. We had the first few kind of hazing
Yeah,
incidences and they kind of cracked down, but for a while there, it's brutal. And you didn't go to some other platoon's floor. If you did, you didn't come back. And
right.
be 3 a.m, there'd be privates up waxing the floors of the hallway. The barracks always smelled like sweat. And it was a terrifying place, but it was like this big party because people's rooms were always open. You'd have 4
Same.
guys living in a room, sharing a bathroom,
Yep.
4 other guys. And yeah, there were some wild times in there for sure. And especially a few times when we had a missing piece of SI and we would get locked down for like 3 or 4 days. When your platoon sergeant's sleeping in the barracks, it gets
It
rough.
gets rough. Yeah, yeah. Our barracks weren't that much different on the conventional side, man. I remember, dude, plenty of time. I learned real quick not to answer my door at a Saturday morning at 6 o'clock because my squad leader was going to be drunk and put me in the lean and rest and read chapters of an actual fiction book to me and
Yeah,
take me.
yeah.
Yeah, like that shit. The barracks cleaning parties where we would literally. I lived on the 3rd floor. We'd have to carry everything downstairs, set it up like it was set up in the room, and then go back upstairs and clean our rooms, and then bring it all that shit, man. If you were a dirty bird, they would make you like set your shelter half up, dress with all the other dirty birds in front of the barracks until like as punishment, like all that old days of the army, man. Like to your point, everything evolved over. You couldn't do shit like that, once we started deploying. Because I remember coming home from my first deployment, I had orders on the parade field welcoming us home to go on the second deployment.
Yeah.
It's wild shit.
Yeah, it was definitely a different time. And there's things that improved and things that we lost as we kind of transitioned. But one of the interesting things was I didn't see a computer for the first few years I was there. It was like platoon sergeant PL had a computer somewhere. And by the end of my career, every person in the platoon had computer work to do and we shared computers. And it's like, we never needed these things. All we just did was hip pocket train constantly when we weren't in the field. And then all of a sudden now it's like we can't survive without a computer.
Yeah. Hand jam and counseling statements. I remember that. I remember still, you may even payphones were how you would get. Somebody had to be on duty for the payphone to then run up to the barracks and get whomever they were calling for, because it wasn't required that everybody have a cell phone.
Yeah, no,
Wild times. Any notable deployments? Any were you a part of any of the deployments from that battalion that are books have been written about now or anything like that?
Probably the most famous mission that we had in ACO 175 was Berlin, when we lost a few guys, and I was there on that mission. It was a long day. I haven't really paid much attention, the documentaries and the books that come out. Like, I was there, I lived it. I don't really pay attention to other people's kind of telling of that story, but man, we had a high op tempo the whole time we were there. In most deployments, we were going out every single night, banging out targets. And man, for a long time, I mean, still to this day, it's all I really want to do. I can't do it anymore. But it was just an awesome way to make a living for a very long time.
It was pretty cool, wasn't it? Yeah. What was the deciding factor like for you to get out?
I got injured, and my last injury was a knee injury, and they did some surgery after a while. And basically the surgeon's like, look, this is as good as it's ever going to get. And you can't have a platoon sergeant on the side of a mountain with a bum knee that needs to get exfilled. So my body just kind of gave out, unfortunately. And that kind of is what it is. It wasn't in the cards for me to keep going.
And your whole career was in battalion?
My whole career.
You were one of the lucky ones, because I know those slots are limited, so you had to have been the high performing guy.
Most people don't get to stay that long, and I would have had to jump around to other battalions and then do charter time coming up. But no, I didn't want to go anywhere else. I wanted to either stay in regiment or go to some other special operations organizations that I didn't end up making it through. And so I was fortunate. Yeah.
I saw it a lot, man. I had a platoon sergeant that had come from 3rd Battalion, and he just was miserable the whole time. Just, he was a platoon sergeant over in 3rd Bat, and then, got hurt and, decided to stay in to finish his career. They gave him the conventional side, and he was just miserable. He's like, you guys are all fucked up. I'm not used to this. It's not how we do things. And it's like, man, like you're blaming us. Like, it's not our fault either. Like, we just don't get the same training. He was awesome though, man. He taught me a lot of things, and really the moral of the story was it's just the amount of money you get and the kind of the training, I guess the money you get to go train is the difference maker between a conventional infantry unit and the special operations unit.
Yeah, I would say there's two things. That's a huge part of it, right? You can't be that proficient in shooting if you don't have the ammo. But the first thing is that there is a selection and assessment process to get there. Right. So and shit falls through the cracks no matter what organization you're at. But majority of people are there because they want to be. They didn't sign up to collect a paycheck. That place is highly competitive. So every single day you have to earn it. So I would say that's the first thing. And then, then we have access to the funding and to the training. And so, it makes a big difference. But, at the end of the day, we have different mission sets that all correlate. They all intertwine. And I did a deployment where I was in an advise and assist role, and I was advising a conventional Army platoon. And we were going out, man, we were doing night hits, all the stuff we normally do. And that platoon was shit hot. Like that, I was very impressed. And they had this one squad leader that just absolutely knew what he was doing. And he ran that platoon, and they were impressive to watch. So despite the lack of, equipment and funding and stuff, you get the right personalities working together, and, we can all be efficient machines, man.
I got to see that over, being a conventional guy, 3 deployments with the 3rd ID. And then when I got to the 2nd ID, our ACO 123 that went on the Afghanistan deployment, that whole company was shit hot. It's so shit hot that right before deployment, they paired us to go do VSO ops with the Green Beret guys. And those guys were singing our praises. And then they canceled it back to conventional ops right for that whole Afghanistan deployment. Going to go hold a large piece of land and all of that. And, it spoke volumes when, the SF, command is fighting to keep us in the VSO ops because we are that shit hot. And so I got to, and I was a part of some really shitty units, man. And I'll tell you, as a leader, as somebody who did care and was doing the hip pocket training and was taking the gun team to the hill every day to do gun drills and, setting up glass houses with engineer tape, it's hard to be in a unit where you're the only one, you're the only one motivated to do the thing that, that like, particularly by that point, I've got 2-3 deployments. I'm like, I know like what war is like. I know what we're going to face when we go over and the shit you're going to get in. It's just hard to be a part of those units. And you're right. There's a lot of people that just don't want to be there.
They don't. And as the war went on, you had more. For example, that platoon that I was advising, assisting, they had this one squad leader who really held that thing together, and he was awesome. But he got in a little bit of trouble, had a little bit of an attitude. He's a gunfighter, man. He's out there doing the work. He ended up getting fired at the end of that deployment because he was smoking in an undesignated smoking area. And I guess like the battalion commander already didn't like him because he had a little bit of an attitude. This guy ended up getting fired. He was one of the best soldiers I ever worked with. He was holding this platoon himself together.
Yeah.
And they end up firing a guy, not in garrison, while in combat, that's holding this platoon together, that's supposed to be going out doing kind of raids that are a little bit beyond what everybody else is doing, his peers. And it's all because, he didn't fit this mold that some colonel wanted. And we ran into that too. It's like, I want you to be a savage on target, but I better not see any disciplinary issues, the attitude out of you back in garrison. And I was fortunate, Adam, because I got a lot of trouble when I was younger. Stuff you don't get away with anymore.
Yeah.
The first safety brief I showed up to, I had just got there. Everyone was deployed. And 2 weeks later, they came back and we're sitting in this first company safety brief. And the first sergeant calls out this squad leader to come before the company. And I guess he had just been to court because he knocked out some cop who was running his mouth. And they're like laughing and celebrating. Apparently the cop walked into court, didn't even recognize him because he just got blasted. And they're all laughing and joking about it. I'm like, we just run around fighting cops. Everyone thinks this is okay. I'm like, this place is going to be awesome. And, fast forward 4 or 5 years, you would have been chaptered out of the army for something like that. And it's just unfortunate, man. And I watched that change. One of the last commanders I worked with, we had some 21-year-old kid get a DUI, loses his license. He's getting kicked out of regiment, getting sent wherever the army wants him, thousands of dollars in fines, all of this stuff stacked against him. This commander's like, I want to get him chaptered, Sergeant Baker. I'm like, sir, why would you want to chapter this kid? He's already screwed up like a big portion of his life. He's never going to escape this. He's going general, wherever the army wants to send him, probably in some crap hole. And he's 21 years old. He did something we've all done. All of us around here have got behind the wheel and we've had a few drinks. It was not a good decision, but how are you going to try to like ruin his life even further? Like what's the point of that? He's a kid. Yeah. And I just saw a lot of that where, it turned into this more of a garrison mindset. And you had especially these officers that would come through. And it was like, I watched some of the best gunfighters lose their jobs over petty nonsense. And that's something that really wore on me after a while.
I know for me, watching the leaders I looked up to, it was kind of like a well-known secret that to be a good leader, you've got to face some kind of adversity, whether that's a company grade or a field grade at some point in your career. Like those tended to be like all the people I looked up to had, it one, if not 2 or 3, like they had been a rank a couple of times. And I'm like, holy shit, like there is hope. So when I get in trouble, doing dumb shit like we do as kids, come on, man. Savannah back then too, I don't know how it probably had changed by the time you got there, but before I went on my first deployment, it was 18 to party, 21 to drink. So we were all the 21-year-old friends that I had would slip their wristbands off. We would take hand sanitizer into the bathroom, take the black X's off of our hands, and then slide the bracelet on. You just pay us cover to get in because military ID, you would get into all the bars and clubs for free. So everywhere in Savannah. And then we come back from that deployment and they had changed everything. It's 21 period. I'm not even 21 yet. I wouldn't be 21 for 6 months after my first deployment. So I'm like, well, this just sucks. Like, what am I supposed to do? Just sit outside of the bar while all my friends are partying and just wait till 3 a.m? Like this. So I got in trouble for sneaking in a couple of times and, underage drinking or whatever. It's like, but you all did this too. Like, fuck, you were with me doing this, and you're the one writing the Article 15 now.
Yeah, it's okay as long as you don't get caught.
Right.
Right. That's kind of what it comes down to. And that mentality started to piss me off after a while. And they're like, look, the expectation is you have some discipline. You're not out there getting in tons of trouble. But when you're deploying every 6 months, you're deploying, you're coming back, you're deploying, like there's going to be some instances where some trouble happens. We got in a lot of fights downtown. Like, what do you expect? I was out there kicking doors in 2 weeks ago. Now I'm downtown and some frat kids talking crap to me. You expect all of us just to sit here on our hands?
Yeah, not
like
gonna happen.
You can't have it both ways. And
Yeah.
so there has to be some leeway. And yes, there's going to be some punishment when you get in trouble, but the levels of punishment just increased. It was like, oh, we can't have these guys. Like, well, that's the best squad leader in this company. And he got in a fight. So now you're going to try to RFS him. Like, it doesn't make sense. And there has, but that's what the great leaders could motivate. The great leaders knew when to forgive. They knew when to discipline. But they weren't ruining the culture around the platoons over some political nonsense.
Yeah. And that's how it was when I got my company grade. I'd show up for extra duty, and every night that I was on extra duty, first sergeant would be there, and I wouldn't do anything extra duty. I would just sit there and have a conversation with the first sergeant. It was just like, he's like, I know you're going to fuck things up. Like, I just sent you to war for an entire year, and I'm expecting you to behave. This is before reintegration training, too. I don't know if you guys ever had anything like that, but they didn't have any kind of like reintegration training to teach you how to deal with some kind of emotion on like a basic level when you come back after spending a year overseas. Anyway, I digress, man. Let's talk about your mindset, man. So your career's over, your knee's bum, you can't be special operations anymore. That's what this show is really about, is the transition and how wrong we get it. So where were you at, man? What was going through your head? What was that like for you? Your whole life? Because I assume you joined young, right? 17.
Yep,
You were in college, so 19.
I was 19 when I joined. Yeah.
That's your whole adult life has been Army Ranger, kicking indoors, shooting people in the face, being really good at it. You obviously were really good at it because you're a platoon sergeant at battalion, which, for anybody who doesn't understand, that by itself is an impressive achievement.
Yeah, it sucked. It really did. But, I was lucky. I was very fortunate. So about 18 months before I got med boarded, my wife and I started a business together, the business that we run today. And it was based off of our own experience. And the way it went down was my wife was an elementary school teacher, and I'm gone for about 6 to 8 months out of every year. She's a single mom holding our family together. And for all of you out there that have lived that life, like having a strong spouse at home makes such a huge difference.
Yeah.
I could feel the support. But I also saw people who didn't have that. And I saw them fighting over deployments and divorces happening. These guys were spiraling. So having a strong support network back home was so important for my career. And my wife was burnt out. She's dropping the kids off at daycare before the sun comes up, picking them up after the sun goes down. Almost her whole teacher salary is paying for these 2 kids in daycare. And so she needed to pivot. Her last year of teaching, her room mom was a virtual assistant. We didn't know what that was. But by the end of the year, she was like, hey, I want to try this. I want to work from home, learn about these businesses, support business owners. So we gave it a shot. And man, there was a palpable difference in my home. Kids were home from daycare, not paying that bill. She's making money. She's crushing it, really bringing value to business owners. And it was like this answered prayer for us. But very quickly, God put it on our hearts that like, I blessed you so you could go bless others. And we started figuring out the military spouse unemployment rate's like 21%. They can't keep jobs. And we saw this we saw this would bridge the gap. You can take this job everywhere you go. It's remote. And so we just started asking her friends. We hired her best friend, another Ranger wife, gave her a client, went and found another client. So we were already starting to build this company. And by the time I exited, so I had a job lined up about a year before I was med boarded. And my plan was to work for a general contractor for 4 years, get my GC license, start my own business. But then God put this business in our lap. And so by the time I got out, it was like, I'm going to work this job and cash flow our business until it can support our whole family. And so I had a path laid out. I knew where I was trying to take this because we wanted to be business owners. We wanted to work remotely. And so I was very fortunate in that. And I can tell you it's really good that it did, because I hated that job. I absolutely hated that job.
Well, and I'm curious, like, so my big issue is ACAP, TAP, whatever, the out of the arm. It's a joke. We know it's a joke. It's a blanket fix for an individual problem. You probably, like me, had a bunch of people in your ear telling you, use your GI Bill, go to college, get your degree. You're a veteran. Everybody's going to hire you. Congratulations, you'll make six figures. That's what success looks like. At what point did you? I mean, obviously you heard about virtual assistants. Your wife started this. She was making money. Like, how did you reconcile, like, ignoring all of that advice and going the route of building a business? Because you and I have the same philosophy. I very much want to encourage as many veterans as I can, particularly in 2025 with where AI is right now and, internet access. Like, you can literally turn anything into a business and make tons and tons of money to support your family and everything else and not be miserable doing it. But everybody's afraid of being an entrepreneur. They're afraid of the risk. How did you reconcile all of that? Like, how did you turn off all the external voices and say, no, this is what I'm fucking doing?
Yeah, I don't know if I know how to answer that. For better or for worse, I've always been good at ignoring everyone's advice and doing what I wanted to do. And for most of my life, that got me in trouble. But I knew that I wanted to be a business owner simply because I didn't want my success to be determined by other people. And I didn't want to be out there making money for somebody else and them advancing off of my efforts. Yeah. I wanted to be in control of the ball. I wanted to make the decisions. And that's all I knew was I don't like being told what to do. So I obviously need to go start a business so nobody can tell me what to do. And that sounds probably ridiculous, but that's kind of what my mindset was. And I had a plan for this other business, but then this thing popped up. College was never a thought in my mind. I'd played that game before. And I just had no urge. And I do hear that. And I think the Army jumped on this college bandwagon so late in the game that everything's changed. I put value on education. It is valuable, not at the evaluation that it costs to go to college. Right. It's become a scam that's subsidized by the government. I can't tell you how many people work for me that don't need a college degree that are still paying off student loan debt. Now, I think that one of the big suckers for the military member is like, oh, I get BAH and I get to go to school. So I'm getting paid while I'm there. But there's an opportunity cost in that. And if you give me 4 years in someone's business, I'm going to move up pretty quickly. I'm confident of that. And so I think I can move further in those 4 years than you will start at when you come out with a college education. And once again, if you're like, hey, I want to be a CPA, I want to be a lawyer, something that really requires a degree, then absolutely go for it. But you better have a good plan in place. But I hear too many guys will tell me, well, I'm going to go to get my degree so I have better opportunities. It's like, better opportunities at what? Because if you can't tell me exactly what that's going to get you, then you're wasting your time, in my opinion. Let's go out there. Let's work some jobs. Let's make some money. Let's figure out what we like, what we don't like. But the most important thing, the first job you have when you get out, it's not necessarily going to be your career. You can't put that much pressure on yourself. But I encourage guys, let's go find jobs that are going to pour into us, that are going to make us more valuable to the marketplace. Yep. 3 years into that job, I should have way more skills and knowledge to offer where I can make more money and have more opportunities. So let's look for a job that's pouring into us, that's giving us skill sets, preferably in an environment where you like the people you're working with. Yep. And I think that's kind of overlooked. I've been in platoons where I wasn't really enjoying myself. And then I've been in platoons that I loved. I loved going to work. We were doing the same job. The difference is the people that I was around. Yep.
It's funny because to hear you say, I'm the same way, man. We were told what to do for our whole lives, even though you were at some point, various points telling people what to do, you were still being told what to do. And then when we get out, for me, it's very much control over my time. It's not even the decision-making or any of that shit. I don't want people to tell me when and where I have to be. I want total control over that. And I really think that, that's a huge dichotomy. Well, you just spent 20 years in the Army, or in my case, 13 years in the Army, being told what to do. You should be really good at going into a corporation and being told what to do. And it's like, no, I don't enjoy that at all. I don't think we really truly enjoyed it when we were in the Army. We just didn't have a choice.
It's a double-edged sword. One of the things about the military is that it's a very easy life in many ways.
It's so easy.
You show up, you know where to be, when to be, what the uniform is, and what the expectation of you is. Every morning I'm showing up, formation, PT, chow, I start my day. And it's not just your day, it's your whole career is laid out in front of you. I know what I have to do to make the next rank. I know what I have to do to make the rank after that. So you have this entire path laid out for you. All right. So that's one key point. The other thing is, like you said, it doesn't matter what rank you are. You always have higher intent coming down. Whatever commander is saying, this is your target, this is your objective, now go plan to execute it. And if you give my people a target to aim at, man, they'll plan 6 different ways to accomplish that. But when you get out, nobody is setting a target for you. Nobody is giving you an objective. And I think this is one of the areas that veterans really struggle, because it's like, all right, I'm getting out. I can do anything I want in the world, and no one's telling me what to go after. I have to figure it out myself. It's such a broad question. There's so many possibilities in that. And I think it becomes overwhelming. We have to be able to set targets for ourselves that are going to keep us on the track in the direction we're trying to move. And you don't have to know exactly where you're going, but you need a terrain feature to orienteer towards.
Yes.
And if you at least can see it's that mountaintop in the distance, well, then I have some idea of the direction I'm going. But if you don't know what is that major terrain feature I'm pushing towards, then you're out there lost in the wilderness.
Yeah, it turns into inaction. You just end up, I mean, fitness goes away because you're rebelling against the system. So you stop PTing. In my case, I gained 100 pounds at my heaviest, right? And that leads to more problems. You start lying to yourself. You just fall further and further down, because you don't have a target, like you're saying. And I see that all the time. It's such a broad question. There's so many things that we can do. We've never taken the time. My philosophy on this is, and it's been confirmed by, I don't know, over 200 veterans that I've talked to that have the same problem, is nobody ever takes the time to ask us what we want. Everybody else is trying to push us into what they think we should be doing. And it's like, well, the only person that matters is me, and I need to answer that question for myself. That's a really good start to get that terrain feature in the distance, like you're talking about, is like, what do I want to do? Okay, this is what I want to do. This is the thing that I know that I could wake up and be happy to do every day. Now, how do I get to the top of that mountain?
Yeah, because if you don't have a target, then how are you going to know you're on track? Yeah. And, I'm a huge believer, man. If you don't write the narrative for your life, it's just going to be written for you. Life's just going to happen, and you're just going to kind of go with the flow and the direction society's pushing you. And so I also think that we get a little too wrapped up in the job, right? Yeah. It's like, my self-identity was my job. So now I have to go find a new self-identity in a job. And that's a terrible psychological place to be. You are not your job. So when people are like, I have no idea what my terrain feature is, the place that I believe is a good place to start is, who are the people you want to impact in your life? When you look back on your life, who did you impact? For me, that's my terrain feature. It's not the job that I'm going to be doing. It's the impact that I had and the influence I had on this world. See, one of the other things that I think is really missing from veterans transition is people are like, about my resume, my skill sets, I'm building my skills.
It's purpose.
How are you serving?
Yes.
How are you serving? The veterans that I know that have found true joy and purpose in their life, they're making a positive impact.
Yep.
They are serving, and you can serve. And there's so many groups out there that need it. homeless veterans, addicts. Maybe you want to save the whales. That's fine. But go serve a greater purpose than yourself. Because that's where I find true joy, is knowing that I made a positive impact. That's the stuff that gets us through. If you gave me a business and you said, hey, here's a business, go make millions of dollars, that doesn't get me out of bed in the morning. Like, I'm a mission-oriented person. I want a cause to fight for. And that's what this business has given me. The purpose that it's given me isn't making money, building business. I like those things. It's seeing the positive impact on the people we are stewarding through the business. That's my renewed purpose. That's what's kept me from falling in some of these pitfalls that veterans hit, because I know the people I'm trying to impact, I'm watching it happen. And no matter what mental state I wake up in that day, I know that these people are depending on me to get out there and serve them.
It's like the first time you and I had a conversation when we met to get this on the books and all of that. You were telling me, it's like, man, we've created something. My wife and I have created something where military spouses now don't have to worry about my husband's being PCS. I still have a job. There's no pattern interrupt for them. And you're like, just to hear you talk about it and watch your eyes light up, right? Like we talked about in the green room, RBF, right? You got resting bitch face. You always look pissed off. But when you talk about VA USA and what you're doing and all of the programs that you have inside of that, it's like me when I talk about plant medicine or talk about this podcast and just being the guy I didn't have when I got out of the Army to help bring veterans on here, tell their stories, let that content live on the internet so that they know that they're not alone and that you do have a choice. Everybody tells me, like, I can see the energy come off of you when you talk about these things. And I feel it for you too. That's what you're talking about. You need to find that purpose, that service in your life post-military.
Yeah. And I also think, right, I think words are important. A lot of times we say we have to find our purpose. Purpose has to be built. It is intentional. The opportunities will probably present themselves, but it is up to you
to capitalize,
to take it and run with it.
Yep.
But it has to be intentional. And if you don't know what you're looking for, if you haven't identified these are the types of opportunities, this is the direction I want to go, then you won't even see them when they come across. But when it's there, you have to be intentional and you have to take that leap of faith. And that's where it comes fighting the fear. And it's very interesting to me because so many people allow fear to stop them from making decisions and from taking opportunities. And even our people, right? So, I'll meet some guy and he's like, some ranger who's getting out and he's like, well, I don't know anything about, that job field. How am I supposed to do that? And it's like, dude, you didn't know anything about being a ranger when you joined.
Nothing.
The odds of your success were so small, yet you didn't let the fear stop you. So why are you letting the fear stop you now?
Yeah, exactly, man.
There's a guy named Boone Cutler. He said this quote. I'll never forget it. He said, your job is not to assimilate into the civilian force. Your job is to infiltrate it. And that is exactly right. Take what made you successful, what makes you different, which you will always be different, and infuse it into that next job, that next business, that next pursuit that you have. Because you're different and you're going to be different. And some people might be uncomfortable with it. Some people might be uncomfortable with your intensity and your focus. The hell with them. They can get out of your way. Let's bring everyone else up around us because the civilian world is full of people who want to do the bare minimum.
Mediocrity, man. I've been on this for a couple of weeks now on LinkedIn talking about, people leading in rooms that don't want to be led and the status quo is bare minimum mediocrity. And that scares people. Lean into that harder because I've learned over the last 2 years building this brand and all the things that I'm involved in, particularly this podcast, it's created so much opportunity. I never had to be afraid of anything, ever. There was nothing for me to be afraid of because this one thing that we're doing here that's not even really that big, doesn't have impressive download numbers or anything, has created so much opportunity for me. And it just continues to create opportunity for me, which then gives me another target to go after. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm a poor kid from Indiana. I shouldn't have this much opportunity. This is awesome.
Let me ask you, out of everything that you've been up to, right? Because you have a lot going on. You're a high performer. What has brought you the most joy since you got out of the military?
This. 100%.
And what about this has brought that joy to you?
I think getting veterans to open up and talk about their transition stories, and it's cathartic for me because I'm not a perfect human, right? I still deal with my own, I've gone on my own healing journey. It's an ongoing thing forever. But I think just getting to have this conversation with you, getting to take a trip down memory lane. We have the Savannah, Georgia thing in common. We were in the Army at the same time. We went on a lot of the same deployments, whether you know it or not. You know what I mean? I think just sharing that and being able to bring that out of people and get them to let that go and reframe their minds by the end of this show. Obviously not you, because you figured this shit out for yourself, but I've got 130 of these published already, and I have another 20 that still haven't come out. Right. So, of those, there's a lot of veterans who walk away from this and they're like, man, like that was so awesome. I just feel like energized and ready to go and move on with my life into something else. This has led to just conversations with other veterans because I'm not afraid to put my philosophies out there and be my authentic self. They reach out to me and it's like, man, your words hit like a fucking hammer. I didn't know I needed to hear those today, but it motivated me to stop listening to what society wants me to do and actually listen to what I want to do. I've been feeling it for so long, but I just felt like it was so wrong to go after that. I don't know, man. I think that's probably my favorite part of all of this is just the relationships I get to build and being able to have that impact in a small way in everybody's journey to wherever they're going.
It's a beautiful thing. And that's what God put an innate drive in every one of us to help human beings.
Well, and so I actually want to talk to you about this because you're rooted in faith. I'm beginning my faith journey. In fact, I'm leaving, here very shortly for a trip to Peru with, leading my first cohort of veterans and first responders to ayahuasca, which is genuinely what saved and changed my life, kind of had my spiritual awakening. I determined I'm going to take the Bible. Is the only book I'm taking. I've never read it cover to cover. In fact, I've avoided it for most of my life. So you said something like everybody lets fear stop them. I know the Bible talks a lot about fear and why you shouldn't have fear. So can you elaborate on that for somebody who's not educated on that? And also how important spirituality is and having faith in a higher power, whether that's God, the universe, Buddha, whatever it is that you believe in. I'm not here to force anybody to get into the Bible or whatever, but how impactful is that in a successful transition?
So fear is a scarcity mindset. I think you're going to be hard pressed to find many successful people that have a scarcity mindset. Fear is this interesting thing, right? How do you overcome it? I think in some ways, maybe it takes practice. But I also think that part of it comes back to, we were kind of talking about goal setting.
Yeah.
We have to have a plan. And a lot of folks, they have these visions, they have these aspirations, but they just kind of let it die right there. They don't really start digging into it. Okay, like what does that really look like? What is really needed of me? How much money is needed? How much time? What resources? What relationships do I have to build? There are so many veterans out there. I mean, there's so many organizations of other veterans who are successful and all they want to do is help you. They're a little higher on the mountain and all they want to do is give a hand down and pull you up. Mentors don't just fall from the trees. It requires you going out there and finding people.
Yep.
So if you have an idea, an aspiration, man, there's somebody out there that's done it already. There's someone that's successful in that space. There's somebody that's taken those first few steps. I would really encourage you to go find those people. Go find a veteran organization that's doing mentorship, that's doing coaching, and say, hey, this is what I'm interested in. Like those people are out there. And I think that's going to be when you meet someone who has walked the path that you want to walk, right? That's going to help take away some of that fear, because one, you've seen this person can do it and this person can give me a blueprint for how to get there. You know, you don't have to, business, life, it is not an individual sport. It will always be a team game. We are always more successful with a team around us. And if you don't have those people in your life, go find them. Go find the successful people that are in the place that you want to be. And we are so fortunate because we're in this time of technology where there's a podcast, there's a YouTube video, there's a short video out there of those types of people. And, you know, one of the few things that we can control in our lives are our inputs. Mm-hmm. What are you putting into your head? You can spend your time listening to a bunch of crap or just music all the time, or you can start listening to things that are going to challenge you and push you in the direction that you're trying to get. But I really do think it comes down to, like, let's start trying to identify what that is. I think that helps with the fear. But at the end of the day, like, that's what makes the pursuit worth it, is the ability to say, I am afraid, but yet I'm going to continue on down this path, right? That's what courage is.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay to be scared.
Every day building everything that I've got my hands in. I'm sure for you, it's the same every single day. I'm afraid, what if this doesn't fucking work out, or this, that, and the other? There's fear.
And it won't, man. One of my personal values is failure is feedback. When you fail,
yes,
you can sit there and wallow, or you can say, what could have been different to make me successful? What do I need to change? What circumstance needs to change around me? Like, that's what successful people do. They are constantly failing and tweaking and changing.
Yep.
Business, life, sports, gunfighting. We have to constantly be taking the failure and seeing, where is the feedback? Where is the lesson that I can learn in there? That's what I say all the
time. Every failure is a lesson for me. It's a learning moment. It's a teaching moment, right? I tried to build a community. I learned I'm not a fucking community builder. I don't have what it takes. I'm not willing to put in what it takes to build a community. And so I cut that and let it go. And I was public about it too. Like, I'm not this person. This is what I learned from this, learn from my failure. And I get to share that lesson with people who are interested in trying to build a community. It's like, that's why we fail fast and we fail forward. Don't, like you said, wallow in that shit and then let it spiral you out of control.
You know, and that's an interesting point that brings up a thought for me. You know, I've learned a lot about myself since I got out. I mean, the military taught me so much. But when I came out of the military, right, I was enlisted. I was an NCO. I don't care where you're at in the military as an NCO. You are a manager of people and equipment.
Yeah.
That is your core task. And so when I got out, I just assumed that that's what I was supposed to always be doing. I've been successful at it. I guess I kind of like it, even though I really didn't like managing people that much. And so my first job that I was using to cash flow our business, I was working for a builder, managing people in the field. And I was miserable. And then in our business, my wife was leaning on me to take over that role, to be that operational, that manager. And it felt so heavy. And I had guilt wrapped around the fact that, like, I didn't want it. I didn't want to step into the thing she needed from me. Mm-hmm. It took me 2 years to figure out that I don't like managing people. And I can do it, but it doesn't bring me joy, right? It's heavy. It pulls energy from me. I want to be doing the things that give me energy. It doesn't matter if I'm good at them. It doesn't matter if I can do them. Now, there's seasons where it's like, I don't care. Like, you're just going to suck it up and do it.
Right. That's business. That's
right. But we're trying to drive to the point where I am doing what I'm great at and brings me energy. And it took a while for me to figure that out. Now, I'm going to be honest. There are personality assessments that helped me along the way. There were some key things. DISC is good. Working Genius was a real pivotal one for me. By Patrick Lencioni built this. And it was like, hey, all that resistance I feel about managing people, because I don't like holding people accountable. I don't like making sure they do their work. I don't like telling people what to do. I really don't like doing those things. Yeah. Mainly because I don't like it when people do it to me.
Yep.
And after 2 years, I figured out, like, hey, and me and my wife had a very frank conversation. It's like, look, this is explaining what I'm feeling. This isn't the role for me. And it turns out she's the great manager of people. She's the great developer of leaders. She is so good at operations and processes and all of the things I hate. What I found and I learned is I'm actually a great visionary. I'm good at casting vision. I'm good at galvanizing a team around that vision, getting them motivated, not making sure they do their work, but motivating them in this direction. I love new ideas. I'm always 3 to 5 years ahead. Like that's where I live. And now I do a lot of business development, just sharing our mission. But it took me a while to figure that out about myself. And if I had just continued down the path that I was on of I've always led people in the field, I'm a manager of people, I would have been unhappy the rest of my life. And I would have jumped from different jobs thinking maybe it'll be different at this place. Maybe it'll be different at this place. And it never would have been. It took time for me to really learn about myself. But one of the things I found when I got out of the military, I was still working a lot of hours, but there was more mental bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
And I started really looking inside and looking back, how I got here, what were my tendencies, what things brought me joy, what was I successful with? And that time to really reflect for the first time in my life was very instrumental for me. And the other thing I would say, we were kind of talking about mentors, is had we not started the business, I would have been another veteran out there completely disconnected from everyone. I didn't care about TAPS. I didn't care about mentor networks and nonprofits that were trying to help me along the way. The only reason I began plugging myself in was because we started a business and we needed to grow. We needed to find clients. We needed to find other business owners that were more savvy than us that could help us along the way. So the business was a forcing function for me to really tie myself into these networks. And man, is it instrumental. There are so many people out there that want to help you.
I think that's a great point, man. Particularly on the TAP side is talking about they shove all these resources down your throat. They're not really giving you a clear picture of how they fit into your life, like what you're saying, right? Like they shove the same resources down my throat, and it wouldn't be till almost a decade later that I would start plugging myself into those resources because I realized how they fit into my life at that point, right? And that's like key. Like I didn't need to take advantage of what you're trying to do for me. I need to plug in with you so that I can grow what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like they serve multi functions. You just have to figure that out for yourself.
They do. And it's, Regiment has their own kind of transition program. And, if you were within 18 months of getting out, you had to go to these big, long meetings all day. I used to avoid that stuff like the plague, man. I'm like, I got no time for this. And then 2 years later, I'm there speaking at them.
Right.
And it's like, man, I was an idiot. Because even if I wasn't getting out, I'm a leader who is expected to be able to give some mentorship to my young guys who are getting out. And I wasn't even going out there and figuring it out because all I cared about was that lifestyle and continuing that lifestyle. But the reality is I don't care who you are. The ride stops eventually.
It does.
You have to get off the roller coaster, man. And you can't chase that dragon forever.
Yeah. I had a first sergeant once tell me the only thing you leave the Army with is your last name. That's it. Like that's all you're taking with you, man. Like you don't get to stay here forever. And dude, I want to talk about your company as we're coming up to the end here. And particularly I get reached out to a lot about like, I need to do something like this for military spouses. And I'm like, man, I was never a military spouse. So like, that's just not my realm. I don't need to go dipping my toes into that. But I think you're an incredible resource with VA USA and what your actual mission is with VA USA. So for all those that are listening, a ton of veterans here, a lot of military spouses listen to this. They may not know about you, and I want them to know everything that you have going on because I think it's incredible, man. Yeah.
First of all, I get to talk about our business all the time, right? I'm kind of the voice in all of the things that happen. They are not because of me. This is because of the team and the people that we've brought together. But I want to, start a few things. First of all, what we believe, our philosophy is very straightforward. This business does not belong to us. It belongs to God. He has given us this opportunity to steward it. Mm-hmm. And one day I will stand before God at the Bema seat, and he's going to ask me, what did you do with this thing that I gave you to steward? He's not going to ask me about my P&L. And let me tell you, you have to make money. No margin, no mission. He wants us to run an efficient, profitable business. If I don't have a margin, I can't pour into my other initiatives. But he's not going to ask me about my P&L. He wants to know, how did I steward the people that were underneath my stewardship? And that's the most important thing. Our mission is to create meaningful jobs and community for military families. What we believe is that we have been strategically placed to pour into young military families to try to prevent the statistic that we all hear about with the suicide and the divorces and all of the other issues. For us, the job is just the vehicle to do this. And we are a for-profit. There is a misconception out there that if you're a for-profit, you're just trying to make money, not trying to make a difference. If you're a nonprofit, you don't care about money, you're just trying to make a difference. They're both completely wrong because, one, if you're a nonprofit and you don't have revenue, you won't be a nonprofit for very long. And number two, if you think you can't make an impact through a for-profit business, then you need to open your aperture up. You know, in the military, we define leadership as providing purpose, direction, and motivation.
We do.
I never focused on the purpose part, because in the Army, your purpose is baked in. Here's your values. Here's your ethos. Here's your mission. When you're running a business, you have to create those things in that organization. So the job is the vehicle. What is the job? It's a virtual assistant. That can mean many things. We support business owners, C-level executives, executive directors of nonprofits with administrative tasks, marketing tasks, finance tasks. We thrive in support roles. I'm taking the calendar, the email, the CRM, all of the little details that bogs the business owner down. We're taking it off their plate so that they can focus on revenue creating activities. They can focus on culture. They can actually work on the business, not in the business. So we are freeing up time and we are freeing up mental bandwidth for these business leaders. Military spouses are the perfect fit for this. This is a fully remote job. Most of our people are part-time. When you're moving, that job goes with you. When you're going through a deployment, guess what? I got 100 other people that know what it's like. They've been through more deployments. They're going through deployments right now. It's your first time PCSing. Hey, we're going to help you PCS. All of the challenges the military spouse faces, man, our team has experienced it, and we are there to rally behind them. Because the common theme that I hear, Adam, is, hey, I just moved to Fort Drum, New York. I have 2 kids. My husband's leaving. There's no jobs. I don't know a single person here.
Yep.
And that's the reality for our military spouses. Isolated, alone, figuring it all out for themselves. That creates all kinds of character that I want on my team. That creates resilience, problem solving, a servant's heart, man. These people aren't going to crumble for you when things get hard because their life is already hard. Mm-hmm. And guess what? I got 5 people up at Fort Drum around you, and they're going to be there. They're going to come take you out to coffee. They're going to bring some food over for you. They're going to help introduce you into their community. So we have a bunch of different initiatives that we run. One of the most impactful things is we have chaplaincy, just like in the military. Now, my chaplain is not here to preach at you. She is here to walk through the storms of life with my team members, the parenting, the marital challenges, and she has seen it all. She's that wise mentor that's going to help us when we are struggling. We run Bible studies. We run couples Bible studies. We're sending cleaners and meal trains to people's houses when their kids are sick, their husbands are deployed. We're sending people on marriage retreats because I fully believe. I've been on marriage retreats. Some people, like, they kind of blow it off. It's like you spend 1 week in a year truly focused on your marriage, surrounded by other people that are focused on your marriage. Man, it will reorient you. It will reprioritize what's important in your life. And so our hope is that by these initiatives and this community building that we're doing, that we can just save one marriage. If we can just save one marriage, then this whole thing is worth it. And then obviously we are faith forward. And my hope is that if you are not a believer and you show up to this company, you will look around and you will be blown away by the love and support that you are experiencing. And my hope is that you'll say, what's different? What's different about these people? Because God called us to be a light in this world. Christ gave a new commandment to his disciples, and he says, I want you to love others the way that I have loved you, so that all people will know you are my children because of that. That is what we try to do in this company. We try to love people and support them through everything that they're experiencing. Yes, I want to give you a great job. You're going to make an income, but it's not about that. It's about all of the other things. It's about helping these people flourish that are serving this country silently, because nobody gives a crap about the military spouse. Everybody wants to thank the service member. How about you thank that person that's been standing behind them, that had no idea what they were getting themselves into when they fell in love, that just shovels the crap, just takes it, just gets told, you're moving here, you're doing this. We don't care about your dreams, your goals, your aspirations. Those people deserve steady work, steady community, and they deserve the opportunity to flourish. And that's what we're all about.
I love it, man. Tell everybody how they can find you.
Yeah. So our website is hire, HIREVAUSA.com. So if you're a business owner and you need some support, you can go there. If you're looking to join our team, we are always hiring. I have a massive recruiting push coming up that's going to create fully remote, full-time jobs, can be done anywhere in the world, that we're very excited about. And, our hope is just, let's create a few meaningful jobs and let's create some community. Let's create some friendships. Let's help people flourish, and give them opportunities. If I say, hey, here's your marriage retreat, it's this weekend, can you go? It's paid for. You don't have to do anything. You just have to show up. I'm a builder of opportunities. And I feel like if we put the friction, you separate the friction of all the things, like you just show up. You don't have to go set up a counseling appointment. Here's my chaplain. You just text her.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about, man. That's what gets me up in the morning, because I've seen the impact. And the greatest thing that we have done is hire great people that share our values, because culture is not built from the top down. Plenty of people put some slogan on their wall and say, hey, that's our mission statement. It's about hiring people who are going to champion and live out your values, and then unleashing them into your team to love and support and to be a light for them. That's how we've built great culture. It has nothing to do with me sitting here doing podcasts, because there's people out there right now that are living out my culture, that are supporting and loving and coming around each other and helping them through problems and hardships. That's what it's all about. That's what we're all about.
I love it, man. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Brett Baker. Brother, thanks for being here. Thanks for taking the time to do this. I know you're a busy man too. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to release this one, dude.
I appreciate you having me, man. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you putting in time, sweat, and effort, hoping that there will be some words of wisdom that come through these interviews that help just one person out there. Because that's what it's all about. Just helping one person at a time. You don't have to change the world.
Nope. Though it's eventually going to lead to changing a bunch of things. So really excited about that. But really do appreciate you, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Brett Baker, please don't forget to like, rate, review, subscribe, download. Help us get this in front of everybody who needs to hear it. And we'll see you next week with another amazing episode. Take care, everybody.